Andrew, first of all, let's talk about growth of CTV, where it's coming from, and the opportunities for publishers to grow their share of the ad spend from traditional TV, from display, social budgets. What are the opportunities and how are publishers taking advantage of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what COVID laid bare the opportunities within CTV. I think there are a few pieces that we look at when we see the growth. The first is the fact that people-based targeting has grown tremendously over the last few years. It wasn't that long ago when targeting within CTV wasn't actually an available option. And you looked at players like Sling, for example, who have first-party programmatic data available to buyers who have that deterministic data. You look at DSPs and DMPs who have built out that ability. And what we've seen over the last few years is CTV has not only become a strong brand awareness piece, but it also can be a lower funnel piece if it is executed correctly. And I think that idea of an audience first viewpoint, hitting the right consumer at the right time against the right content on a big TV is going to drive results, has shown that it drives results. Right? It is the same reason why addressable TV has and continues to be so successful. I think in order for CTV to continue that growth outside of an audience adoption, which has already occurred, is education. That is going to be one of the most important pieces of 2021, because I think that is still, frankly, the largest gap for a lot of buyers. Despite CTV's talking points in market, it's new. Right? We went from the year of mobile for 10 straight years from the year of viewability to really what I believe was the first year of CTV in 2020. And there are still a lot of marketers who I think are trying to figure out where CTV exists within their media plans, how to push it successfully in market. And there's an ecosystem between DSPs and SSPs, programmers and data vendors, and it's complex. We're all trying to drive that education, but it takes time. And I really believe that it's incumbent on sales teams to continue to educate buyers on approaching one-to-one relationships, what you can do from a people-based targeting, how you can be successful, and then really where does CTV sit within the consumer cycle? We're not outside of it anymore from an audience perspective. We are smack in the middle of it.
Andrew, let's talk about header bidding and sort of some advancements on the sell side. Tell us about the future of CTV from the publisher side, and particularly with a reference to header bidding.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. In terms of the future of CTV, especially as we look at the header bidding, I think what we have to understand is what header bidding is designed to do is to not just unify a publisher's demand, right? That is obviously one of the core components, but it's to streamline the access from a buyer, right? Slingers always believe that there shouldn't be 100 ways to access our inventory. And I think a lot of CTV publishers see that as well. But what we want to make sure is that the buyer's journey is as seamless and easy as possible. That when they're buying people like Sling or they're buying other OTT publishers, they're not having to tap into 3, 4, 5, 6 SSPs. They're not have to do multiple IOs through multiple parties. What we want for the market, and I think what buyers want too, and one of the reasons SPO has grown as it has, is seamless, simple, direct access. Because if you make the journey to the inventory too cumbersome, you're going to lose out on revenue. And what DPO and what things like API and what all of these things have in common is how do we ensure that the buyer can access the inventory through one supply path, but at the same time, the publisher can ensure that there is multiple demand and that demand is competing against each other. So it's one of those things where both of those systems need to play off each other. And that's why API and header bidding has jumped so quickly to the forefront of CTV, especially within the programmatic ecosystem.
Andrew, tell us about ad serving from the publisher's standpoint. It seems that ad serving has been established, but yet there's room for improvement. What's the state of ad serving on the sell side?
Yeah, I mean, I think the future of the CTV ad server is really the continued push to have everything live holistically and simplistic, right? And make it simplistic. It is the continued push for programmatic and other lines of businesses to be able to be managed in a way that benefits all buyers and benefits the publisher as a whole. The minute that you start to leverage things like API, the minute that you unify SSP demand during a header bidder, what you see is that it creates a system within the ad server that gives more control for optimizations, that gives simplistic demand paths for access to buyers, that makes it easier to avoid things like ad duplication. And it's really how most publishers today, I think, want to manage their ad stack. The modern ad server is just going to have to be simply all-encompassing. What is clear to me is that the market is continuing to move towards more dynamic technical solutions, and ad servers that are programmatic first have an advantage in the future of advertising because they're already at that point where they can do that.
So tell me about the future of live OTT ad breaks. What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the future of live OTT, right, especially within a place like Sling, you look at how the ad breaks are set up. They do mirror, still to this day, what you see on linear, right? And I think that's an important point because what's going to happen is I don't think we're going to get to a place really for some time where the ad breaks look different. What will be different from a consumer perspective is the relevancy of those ads due to things like people-based targeting. We already see this with Sling. The majority of our campaigns are audience first, but it's only a matter of time, I think, between until that approach is mirrored alongside programmers. So while consumer may not have less advertisements, I think the ad experience will inherently improve, right? Because the ad will be something the consumer is interested in. Sitting through ad breaks today that aren't relevant to the consumer holistically, it can be frustrating. And I think just improving that is just a boom on the ecosystem, on CTV, on marketers. And so as a vMVPD, we've had an advantage of showing premium content that you can buy on CTV and understanding what that end user is interested in when they're watching that premium content. And I think you look at study after study, I've heard people talk on BTV about this. It's not so much ads that can be seen as frustrating or cumbersome, but it's sometimes the lack of relevancy. So the combination in a vMVPD brings of premium content, audience first strategy, the right 30-second creative on the right content, it brings strong ROI to marketers. And so what's going to happen is it's not necessarily that the pod will change. I think it's that the pod is going to get more sophisticated, that the audience watching is going to see things that are of interest to them, just like the content they're watching